Hey everybody, it's Swank Ivy again, bringing you another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 32. Today I'm going to talk about everybody's favorite argument, the biological fitness argument, if you can even call it an argument anymore. Also known as, you're not worth anything unless you have children, that's why we're here on the planet. I know I've addressed this before in other videos, but I think that the way I responded to this person might give you some new ideas about maybe how to address this if it ever comes up. And the only thing you really need to know going into it is that there's one exchange where we talk about the number 30,000. The person questioned why I had said that 30,000 people cared about my message in another video and objected on the grounds that I only had around 5,000 subscribers. So just so you know, that was because one of my videos had about 30,000 views. So when that comes up in the context of the comment that this person made, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to dive right in. Here's the first comment that someone left on my video, and after I redo our exchange, I'm also going to follow it up with a little bit of conversation about trolling. So here's the first comment. This person says, "You're living a lie. Fitness in biology, the genetic contribution of an individual to the next generation's gene pool relative to the average for the population, usually measured by the number of offspring or close kin that survive to reproductive age. You are not fit. In biology, asexual is not involving the fusion of gametes, basically meaning that you can reproduce without needing a spouse. Pretty much making a clone. Now that that is said, 30,000, you only have 5K subscribers, so I'm just curious as to where this number came from." So here's my reply to that. "Hey, but let's face it, brosif, us not having kids isn't why people give us crap. All the asexual people I know who have had kids and still get sneering BS harassment and but nature commentary can attest to this. Winky face. It's never about the babies, guys, even when you claim it is. Invalidation of asexuality sometimes pretends to be about biological fitness, but if that were actually the sole reason somebody wants to shake their finger at us, they'd be doing it to all the people who use birth control and or never have kids. And considering nearly half of women from age 15 to 44 in my country in the recent census have never had children, and yet we are not in a population decline crisis, I fail to see how I'm living a lie due to being one of them." Source: U.S. Census Bureau. In 2014, 47.6% of women between age 15 and 44 had never had children, up from 46.5% in 2012. This represents the highest percentage of childless women since the Bureau started tracking this data in 1976. Doesn't really matter though. If you refuse to acknowledge my legitimacy as a human until or unless I squeeze another human out of my vagina, I'm actually plenty fine to sleep at night, knowing you have disqualified me from the species for all my icky unfitness. Also doesn't make sense to drop scientific definitions of what asexual reproduction means when you obviously can't be thinking asexual people are claiming to be talking about their reproduction when they discuss their orientation being asexual. Or do you think red can't be a hair color because that word is already claimed by scientists who study red tides? Context is not unclear in these situations, and it's really petty to pretend asexual as applied to humans' orientation is somehow confusing because there is a type of reproduction that shares its name. The 30,000 number came from how many views I had on the video where the featured comment came from. Surely you don't think all video views come from one's subscribers or that all of one's subscribers watch every video. So the person did reply, but very briefly, and they said, "Okay, I was mostly kidding." So I replied to that also briefly for me. My reply was, "And yet, sounding exactly like the people who aren't kidding, who have said the exact same thing you said in the exact same way to me probably at least a dozen times. If you're kidding, but you're saying the same things people who aren't kidding say to marginalized people constantly, and you're doing it with no context, with no previous rapport with the person you're doing it to, you are indistinguishable from people who say it to be disgusting. But I was joking is a bad excuse." And going on that same track, I would just like to say I do hear fairly often from people like, "Hey, that person is just kidding, or just joking, or just playing around, or just trolling." it doesn't really matter what their intent is if what they're saying to me is identical to what people really say when they want to invalidate me or cut me down. I did some writing for Psychology Today this year, and both of the articles that I wrote were, peppered with comments from science bros telling me that the whole meaning of being on the planet is to have children, and if you don't want to have children, then there's something wrong with you, by definition. And they mean it. And they're not kidding around. They actually believe this. And the evidence that people actually believe that that's really, really important is everywhere in society. So, I mean, like I said in the response to this person, people who are asexual, who actually have had children, still get the biological fitness argument. And, they would be saying the same thing to people who use birth control if that was really the center of their problem with this. So it's really frustrating to me when people say that they're kidding or they weren't serious about it, and that I should have somehow been able to tell from who knows what kind of context that they didn't mean it, because people mean it all the time. And it doesn't really matter to me whether you meant it, whether you're one of the people who meant it. You still chose to say it. And, when you're kidding around with someone, some of you who are watching this might not realize that sometimes you're saying the exact same things that people use deliberately to be hurtful. So you gotta watch that when you think that the person can tell, or maybe you think that it doesn't really matter if they know you're kidding or how serious you are, or that trolling is somehow not very harmful if you come out later and say that you didn't really mean it or you were just trolling. It has real effects on people, especially people who are from marginalized groups. So if you're one of these people who has ever tried to do that to someone, you really need to think about not doing that to people. So that's going to be my my wrapping up message to leave you with, and I hope everybody who's watching this at the time that I'm making it is having a great holiday season, and I will see you next time.